Weta sees the Loxodon, Quint, break into a run and races after him. They were following the ghost, Abuelo, as he liked to call himself, his poncho flapping as he darted between buildings. Weta is the last to see what is around the corner, next to an underground river. Abuelo shouts out that there's a titan and disappears in a swirl of purple-pink energy. Weta and Quint skid to a halt, seeing a looming figure twice their height. They may have mistaken it for a fungus on the walls, until it moved. Its head was a huge layered mushroom, while its shoulders and chest were clustered with smaller round toppled morels. Hardened spikes protruded from the back of its massive hands and forearms. The hair on Weta's arms raised as she heard a low, discordant buzzing. Before she and Quint could do more than stare, the creature attacked. Hello everyone and welcome back to the Aether Hub. I'm Simon, bringing you more Magic the Gathering lore. Today we're continuing with our story through MTG's latest expansion, the Lost Caverns of Ixalan. In our previous chapter, which you can find linked on your screen right now or in the description below, we followed the major factions of Ixalan as they spelunked their ways to the depths of their world. The planeswalker Quint, with the Sun Empire, uncovered an ancient civilization that predates their existence on the surface. The vampires of the Legion of Dusk continue searching for their bat god and run into the Omen Path traveling Kellen, who we saw in our previous set, Wilds of Eldraine. And the pirates of the Brazen Coalition encountered dangerous fungus spores that seem to reanimate the dead. The secrets are getting darker as light struggles to delve into the Lost Caverns of Ixalan. Now let's continue with Chapter 3, written by Valerie Valdez. But first, a word from today's video sponsor. Today's video is sponsored by Bespoke Post, a monthly membership club that delivers a box of awesome, top-shelf goods from indie brands right to your door. It's free to sign up online, and you can skip any month or cancel any time. For me, I love to get out and do some camping with friends. Even just playing MTG outside can be so refreshing. I got the Billy box from Bespoke Post, so even when I'm out in the evolving wilds, I can still brew some coffee. It came with this beautiful espresso-style coffee maker that's fitted with a tumbler. Of course, you're gonna need to heat it up, and in this box I also got a mini wood-burning survival stove. All you need are some loose sticks, and you'll have yourself a hot coffee pot in no time. They've even included this camp kitchen cleaning set, so when I'm done brewing, I can clean everything up and be ready for the next morning. 90% of the products come from small brands, many of which are based right here in the United States. So with your monthly boxes, you're also supporting small businesses. And each box has some truly awesome and unique items specifically added to fit whatever theme you're most interested in. They're constantly updating the website so members are introduced to cool and new products all the time. You can take their preference quiz, and Bespoke Post will curate a box based off of those findings. From outdoor gear to barware, there's something for everyone. When I'm not camping, maybe I'm hosting Commander Night, and then I like to use what I got from Bespoke Post Smoked Box. It comes with everything you need to enhance your beverage with a woodsy note. Along with the infusion case and the butane torch, I also got these hickory smoking chips. They added so much flavor to my guests' drinks that they even decided to not conspire against me when we played, which was a refreshing change of pace. You can preview your next Bespoke Post before it's shipped. Take a look at exactly what you'll be getting, and if you're not feeling it one month, you can swap it out for a different box or skip it entirely at no charge. They believe in a simple, pay for what you want model. Really, every box is chock full of amazing items at such a great value. Every box of awesome you get has roughly $70 worth of products inside, but you only pay a fraction of that price for it. And that deal can be even better when you use my unique code AetherHub20. You can get your first box of awesome 20% off by clicking the link in the description and entering my code AetherHub20. Again, follow the link in the description, bespokepost.com/AetherHub20 for 20% off your first box. Weta brandished her sword to try and distract the creature from attacking Quint. It grabbed a handful of stone wall and threw it at Weta, but she danced sideways, avoiding it. Giant stone blocks fly past her, followed by a shower of pebbles and splinters. The Titan roars and rears back to strike. Weta lunges under an arm as big as a tree trunk when it swipes at her. She rolls into a crouch and slices the back of its leg. It turns, swinging, but Weta stays under it until she can jump for its back. Weta cuts out a chunk of fibrous material with her sword, but it doesn't seem to matter. A human would have been easily disabled, but this Titan is unaffected. A spear pierces the Titan's chest, announcing the arrival of Hautli, Inti, Caporochi, and the other warriors. They surrounded the creature, tearing away pieces until mushrooms and hardened bark litter the ground. Their dinosaur companions are kept away for their own safety, but mtglci, Weta's companion, jumps over to help. None of their strikes slow the Titan down. It shows no sign it feels pain. Weta's muscle sings of fatigue, her breath burning raggedly in her lungs. The creature's wounds ooze with black fluid, forming viscous strands, weaving together until they burst into some new fungal growths. It pulls a spear from its chest and flings it at the warriors, just barely missing one of them, but then catching her with a spiked arm. The force flings her back into the wall, where she crumples on the ground unmoving. The creature then spits at another warrior, who screams as the black ooze eats through his armor. Weta runs to help, but the bloody bone showing through the remains of the man's flesh tells her there's nothing she can do. A dozen new creatures surround them, smaller versions of the Titan, formed of different shapes and sizes of mushrooms. Some are armed with weapons, likely taken from the many corpses that lay in this deserted place. The Sun Empire warriors are now outnumbered and outflanked. One of the creatures plucks a mushroom from its body and throws it at a warrior's feet. The mushroom glows an eerie green, then bursts into thick black mold encasing the man's boot, spreading rapidly up his leg. He stumbles, and mold surges into his mouth. A wave lashes out from the underground river, knocking two of the mushroom creatures away. Half a dozen River Heralds, the Merfolk of Ixalan, leap onto the shore and join the battle. One of the River Heralds said the battle was lost, and beckoned the warriors of the Sun Empire to safety. Relations between the Sun Empire and the River Heralds had been tense. Could they be trusted? Trust had to start somewhere, might as well be here. One of the heralds grabs Weta's hand, murmuring an incantation, drawing circles in the air around her face. A rainbow sheen covers Weta like she'd been encased in a bubble. The merfolk wishes her swift travels and shoves her into the river. Weta tumbles through the cold, dark river, realizing she can breathe, thanks to the merfolk spell. The current carries her to an unknown destination, new light appearing in the distance. Weta bursts into open water and kicks her way to the surface. She searches for others, and finds them already swimming toward the shore. Weta soon too flops onto land, relieved to find Quint peering around in undisguised awe. A massive stone city rises from the underground ocean, extending down even further like the temples of the threefold sun. Long strings of bioluminescent baubles and baskets holding firebugs light the streets where the River Heralds walk. Weta wrings out her clothes, only to be soaked again by her dinosaur friend, mtglci, emerging from the water. A young merfolk introduces herself as Nikanzel, and seeing Quint's awe, explains that this is the greatest assembly of merfolk bands Ixalan has ever known. They await the opening of the final gate to the source, the giant corroded door at the top of the temple. Nikanzel's mother is the great shaper, Pasona, who found this place. Hautli wonders if this is mtglci, the door that leads to the birthplace of humankind. Quint wonders if this mysterious coin empire made it down here, dreaming of all the ancient artifacts he could find. Weta asks why Quint should tell the story if he's not from Ixalan. That's the purpose of their warrior poet. Quint corrects himself, deciding that he should think of it as recording history instead. Weta had once thought to follow Hautli's footsteps and become a warrior poet herself one day, but the Phyrexian invasion shattered those dreams. She needed to be a soldier, then a pirate to survive the chaos after the war. Sometimes she helped the Brazen Coalition steal and sell artifacts, not only from Torazan, but from her own Sun Empire as well. She left that life behind, still bearing guilt, but what was she now? An explorer? Could she also collect the stories of her people? Hautli, hearing the conversation, explains not everyone understands the power of words and the control it can give over others. She recites a poem that Weta doesn't recognize. When my bones sleep in the earth, who will share memories of me? Friends may raise monuments, while enemies profane my grave. When they too have passed on, what will their children remember? Weta looks up at the door atop the pyramid, sad that so much had been lost to time. Hautli reminds her of the joy when something lost is found and shared. Weta thought some things might be best left forgotten, depending on what people intended to do with them. Perhaps some monuments deserve to be brought down. She hoped what was behind this so-called Door of the Gods was a blessing and not a curse. Cables creak as the elevator descends into the cave. Malcolm watches his injured companions, a cold lump of dread in his stomach. The black markings on their wounds had spread. Worse, They had begun to grow a sickly shade of green. They didn't complain of pain or discomfort, or even being tired, when normally they'd be asking to rest. They seemed to alternate between foggy detachment and examining their surroundings with interest. In the light of his shoulder lamp, Malcolm could see the walls of the cave. They were wet and slick, coated with fungal growths that were spreading in an alarming pace. He pulls a cloth from his pack to tie around his face, as the scent of the rotten mold strengthened. The elevator lurches as it hits something, and one pirate looks over the edge to find a large mushroom. She takes out her sword and hacks through it, causing the elevator to shift. The pirate sneezes and stumbles backward, explaining that the mushroom burst like a sack of flour. Malcolm can see a cloud of glittering green spores, much like the glowing wounds of the other pirates. Suddenly, the injured pirates shove two of the uninjured into the spore cloud. Malcolm can hear cries of surprise turning into wet coughs, then gagging and retching, black fluid splattering against the floor. Then, everything stops. The affected pirates rise jerkily to face the others, their eyes green, black veins stretching across their faces. The surviving pirates drew their weapons as the affected attacked. Malcolm leaps over the guardrail, the lack of air currents forcing him to use magic to fly. He lands on the ropes, Breeches climbing to meet him, asking if they should escape. The sound of his voice catches the attention of the infected, who look up in unison. Malcolm and Breeches draw their knives, sawing at a rope holding the elevator. The elevator jerks as the cable unravels, Malcolm and Breeches cutting as fast as they can. The pirates inside the elevator stumble, and with a terrible silence, the elevator falls away into the dark. Malcolm alternates between flying up and climbing, Breeches pacing him on the ropes. They diligently avoid a tendril of fungus on a nearby wall. Malcolm would have previously thought it was his imagination, but now he believes an eerily eye-like mushroom is now tracking their movements. What terrible curse could turn pirates and dinosaurs into mindless puppets? And what could be orchestrating it? After climbing up the cables, Malcolm and Breeches find a tunnel to catch their breath. Their muscles ache, and Malcolm's head throbs from using too much magic. The mystery of downtown's massive disappearances were almost certainly related to the mold and fungus. Their supplies were at the bottom of the elevator shaft, and of the 8 people Malcolm brought with him, only he and Breeches survived. If they left now, they would be abandoning any survivors among their men and the people of downtown. The mine would probably remain empty. No one would want to work in a place where the previous denizens disappeared. If no one was mining, no money would flow to the Brazen Coalition, and then it would only be a matter of time before the economy fractured into the old feuding pirate fleets. Malcolm loved his time sailing, but after the war, he was happy to settle onto something more stable. Should they go back to the surface and live to fail another day, or keep going further into the unknown? They had almost convinced themselves to give up, until a faint glow coming from the elevator shaft catches their attention. They peer over the edge to see fungus climbing the wall, growing at impossible speed. Malcolm realizes the fungus is forming words, glowing a sickly green, the same that had overtaken his people. The first word reads safe, then down. Is this a truce or a trap? Whatever had done this must be sentient. Perhaps diplomacy wasn't out of the question. Hope is the most dangerous weapon of all, and Malcolm felt it slide into his heart like a blade. As Bartolome walks past rivers of molten lava, he wonders whether, despite Vito's assertions, if Aclazotz was meant to be found. The farther their pilgrimage led them underground, the more signs of habitation they discovered. More buildings, glowing markers covered in glyphs, gardens of pale leafless plants growing in the sand. They hear scuttling sounds and catch glimpses of movement, but never encounter more inhabitants. Bartolome watches as Amalia converses with Kellen, seeing reminders of his own daughter in the cartographer, still so innocent even after the horrors of the invasion of New Phyrexia. He had to guard the future of those like her. He would do whatever necessary to protect their innocence. When Bartolome joined this expedition, he was told by his Queen Meralda to play along and discover Vito's true intentions. Bartolome hadn't realized how heretical Vito's ideas had become, how far he'd turned from the church. Bartolome also hadn't discovered who gave Vito the journal and lance of Venerable Tarion in the first place. He suspected the faction that opposed Queen Meralda, the one that supports the warhawk, Vona, known as the Butcher, instead. What if Aclazotz aligned with Vona? Surely, the way Vito was acting, he hadn't considered that. The Legion enters a plateau, overlooking 2 lava falls. Then there's shouting and a clatter of motion. Clavileño's soldiers draw their weapons, circling the procession protectively. 24 warriors surround them, taller and broader than the vampires, faces like cats with spotted fur. Their armor is elaborately decorated, wielding bows, serrated obsidian blades, and polearms. One of the cat people speaks, brandishing a polearm covered in glyphs, telling the Legion they must follow. Vito demands to know who they are, and one introducing themselves as Quetzil, champion of Malamet. He insists the Legion members need to come with him or die. Bartolome tries to explain their pilgrimage, that they meant no harm. But then Quetzil declares their mission is not his concern. He explains that Sovereign Okinek Ahua would decide their fate. Vito agrees reluctantly, knowing the pilgrims were too tired to fight and supplies were running low. The procession follows the Malamet warriors deeper into their city. Now that the Legion has an escort, inhabitants appear, as well as some pale, goblin-like creatures that were similar to the ones chasing Kellen when they found him. Bartolome marvels that an entire culture exists in these caves and tunnels and never traveled to the surface. Quetzil halts, explaining that they were the first strangers to look upon Banco since the time of the ancient Oltec people. The entire city is built into a cluster of stalactites so large they may as well have been inverted mountains. Rope bridges and nets extend between buildings, as well as thick cables suspending strange carriages on pulleys. One of the carriages approaches with passengers inside, who climb out to meet the other Malamet. The catfolk split the Legion into 2 groups for transport into the city. If diplomacy failed, it would be nearly impossible to escape this place. Some of their soldiers could fly, being sky marchers, but the rest would be trapped. They were led across a bridge to one of the largest stalactites, covered in enormous glowing glyphs. The interior of the stalactite is filled with a giant pyramid, hundreds of steps leading to a small room at its peak. A strange murmur echoes in this cavernous space, its source unseen. They are led inside the pyramid, into a long room flanked by pillars, a Malamet crouching between each of them. They wore elaborate collars and headdresses, suggesting they were priests or nobility of some sort. As the Legion passes, the Malamet show teeth that make vampire fangs seem tame by comparison. Seated on the throne at the end of the room, presumably, is Sovereign Okinek Ahua. Katsu bares her throat in deference, and tells him she has brought invaders from the surface. Vito insists that they're only passing through, on a journey to the land of their god, Aklazats. Okinek Ahua insists there are no gods down here, except him, and twirls a giant serrated sword in his paws. Okinek Ahua introduces his Mythweaver Puck, a tawny-furred Malamet wearing a silver harness, etched with glyphs and pictographs. Puck raises his arms and utters one small, soft word. The scent of rain, scouring lightning, and the heat of a dry summer day fills the air. A swirling green mist appears between his claws, coalescing into an image. A snarling face, twisted and rippling, its fangs bared. It notices the Malamet around it, and the face snaps forward, biting at Mythweaver Puck. Puck drops his hands, looking to Okinek Ahua, shaking his head. Okinek Ahua announces that one invasion begets another. They would not allow it. Vito aims his lance at the Sovereign as the Legion is sentenced to death, to be given to the sands. The Malamet around them growl, raising their arms, illuminating the glyphs that mimic the spots on their fur. Their magic wraps the Legion members in chains, forcing them to kneel. Kellen shouts that this isn't fair, they've done nothing wrong. Okinek Ahua just states that the fire does not concern itself with fairness, it simply burns true. One by one, the Legion members are carried to a fountain with a jaguar head at the top. Sand pours through the open mouth, pooling below and then draining into a larger hole. Bartolome watches as Vito is thrown in head first, his lance pinned to his side by magic chains. Vito curses his enemies, raving that his god will grant him strength and vengeance. Bartolome watches as his comrades are thrown into the basin of sand. Clavileño hisses and bares his fangs as he sinks. Amalia is eerily calm as the sand overtakes her. She's murmuring something to herself, eyes wide and unseeing. Kellen is across from her, flailing, his face full of panic as he slides closer to the drain. Before they vanish, Amalia tells Kellen to hold his breath. As the Malamet lift Bartolome into the basin, he consoles himself with the thought that Vito would do no more mischief in Torrazon. That was at least some comfort. He only wished that it didn't come at such a high cost. The sand presses against Amalia's body, denser and heavier than water. The grit seeps into her clothes, her nose, even her mouth and eyes. As she holds her breath, she wonders whether her vampiric abilities would shield her from the suffocation. If so, she might be trapped in this river of sand for eternity, unable to die or drink life-giving blood. Visions consume her. A mysterious door set into a cavern wall, made of green-tinged copper and covered with glyphs. The sky fills with purple-tinged clouds. Beyond the sky, there was ground? No, a sphere burning as bright as the sun. Strange metal scraps float around it, glowing purple-pink. Amalia hears the voice call to her again, and then she feels as if she's falling. Without warning, she hits the water and her eyes fly open. Disoriented, Amalia swims toward an underwater city. She finally kicks to the surface, but before she can feel relief, a flurry of River Heralds surround her. There are dozens, armed with their jade weapons and elemental magic. Amalia turns to see Vido snarling, Bartolome looking worried, and Kellen resurfacing with a spattering cough. One of the merfolk warns that they should not be provoked, and demands that they come with them or be subdued by force. And there you guys go, Chapter 3 of Lost Caverns of Ixalan's story. Finally, after 2 chapters of being absent, the merfolk of the River Heralds join the race to the center of Ixalan. It seems they have followed the low-flowing rivers of the world down into its depths, and located a place of great myth, the birthplace of all life. The members of the Sun Empire expedition, along with Quint, also find their way to this place, being helped along by the merfolk when encountering a gigantic fungus titan. They learn that these things aren't to be trifled with, but now they're on the cups of another great, amazing discovery. The Brazen Coalition's journey into the unknown is off to a terrible start. They know all too well the dangers of this fungal spore, learning that it's sentient somehow. Now Malcolm and Breeches are determined to understand this source and what it wants. The Legion of Dusk are in the worst possible situation. Fanaticism has corrupted their purpose down into the caverns, and they were captured by an unknown group of Jaguarfolk, then again by those same River Heralds. Amalia and Kellen are just both happy to be alive at this point, but how can they continue searching for their bat god now? Again, I just want to thank Valerie Valdez for writing this story, as well as our video sponsor. Remember, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to catch all of the chapters of our story, hit that like button, become a subscriber, and share it with friends. It all goes a long way in helping this channel grow. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, see ya!